Hello and welcome back to the All Right Talk Show. Joining me on the show this week is Colin Campbell. Colin is a fitness fanatic and investor. He is also the host of his own podcast, Canberra Conversations. Just dropping you a little plug there, but we're going to get into all things investing and fitness and mindset and kind of everything in between. And let's just jump right into this one because it's going to be a good chat. So Colin, thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
Shane, delighted to be here. Thank you for having me. And we were just saying before we started rolling that I'm maybe a bit more husky than normal because for those that aren't already acquainted with me, I'm a massive Rangers fan. And depending on when this goes out, yesterday, the 7th of March, Rangers won their 55th league title, and I've been out all day celebrating. And a little bit husky from singing with the players at the training ground through to celebrating at George Square, which is in the centre of Glasgow. So hopefully my accent and my voice holds up for the duration of this, Shane.
That must have been actually a decent day, actually. If it's like you're obviously, but you're very, very passionate, aren't you? I've watched some of your stories, so yeah, it looked like it was a pretty fun day yesterday.
Yeah, it was huge. It's outpouring after 10 years of frustration, and to win our 55th title is massive. So yeah, like you say, one of my big passions away from fitness and finance and career is Rangers, and I think like anyone that's a big football fan will know what it feels like when you win something, but it's amplified when it's been a long time since that's happened. So yeah, delightful to be champions of Scotland again.
It's absolutely spot on, mate. Yeah, fair play to you. Awesome, man. Cool. So yeah, just for the listeners then and the viewers, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, Shane. So I'm a 28-year-old from Glasgow, an area called Bearsden, just outside Glasgow in Scotland. My main interests in life are fitness, but that works alongside my career in business development in the insurance space at the moment, although there's a change coming there, but we can maybe touch on that another time. But yeah, business development, sales has always been my career since I left university 6.5 years ago, graduating with a degree in politics. Absolutely nothing to do with sales, nothing to do with insurance, but a means to an end, getting a good degree from a good university and kind of going through that kind of signature path, which our education system tends to force us down. And from there, growing a good personal brand on social media, primarily in the fitness space initially with Colin Campbell on Instagram, posting about training, nutrition, mindset, self-development. And that was probably since early 2017. So 4 years into that, it's grown arms and legs. It's a great platform for me. And off the back of that, launched, as you said in the intro, Canberra Conversations podcast, which is where my passion probably lies more so than Instagram now in terms of content creation. Wide range of topics that we're touching on. Like I say, today we'll probably talk a lot about fitness and finance and investing, but alongside that we talk about a host of other things in the podcast too. And it's been a great project for me. So I think that's me in a nutshell, I suppose, Shane.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. Yeah, I love your content on Instagram. I read all about because you put a lot of photos of yourself, but it's not like, for me, when I look at them, they're not showing off. It's the sort of thing like it's factual stuff, and it's not like, hey, here's me in the gym doing like 10, it's not like bullshit stuff, is it? It's like you give a lot of facts. Like, in fact, today I quoted one of your Instagram posts to a colleague of mine at work because we were just talking about abs, and he was like, oh, do you have to train abs every single day? I was like, no, that's like so not true. You don't have to. And then I revert to one of your posts. It says you only really have to do it twice a week. It's the same as any other muscle, and they're actually smaller muscles, so you don't really have to train them like excessively every day. And for that, mate, you don't have to train every muscle every single day because it's just overexertion, isn't it?
Yeah, you've taken a good lesson from my post there, Shane. I'm delighted that you've been able to pass it on as well. And do you know, it's a complete tangent, but one of the best ways for us to reinforce learnings ourselves is to teach on to others. So I love the fact that you've almost learned this and you've reinforced it to yourself in terms of how you would approach training your abs by telling a colleague. And it's that's a great feeling for me, knowing that something I've put out there has resonated. And like you say, yes, there's a lot of photos of myself. That's the nature of Instagram. You have to play the game a little bit to get people's attention with my physique. And then hopefully I give value to enable people to get it beyond maybe just somebody that puts up a great physique shot and says something like train hard or Friday flex or whatever it is, that just wouldn't sit well with me. It's maybe a good way to grow your page faster, because some people don't read things on Instagram. It's a picture based app, but for me, I'll play the game. I'll post the good photo of myself if I have to, and then I'll try and deliver something off the back of it. It might even just be as simple as, here's me ripped out my box, please listen to my podcast.
Yeah, no, it's a good plug. And you're right. It's like, by having those photos, it makes people stop. And well, for me, it did. I was like, well, this guy's ripped. I want to read what it says. But it's like really good stuff. I find your content pretty good. And I'm sure a host of other people as well. That's why you've got a pretty decent fan base on Instagram.
Yeah, of course. I think that's taken a long time to build. It's not an easy platform to grow as a male. For starters, I'll tell people that up front. It is easier to grow if you're in the female fitness space, particularly if you're in particularly good shape. As a male in the fitness space, you probably have to be in quite good shape as well, but you have to show up and give value regularly. My first 3 years, I posted every single day on my grid, and then obviously regularly in the stories to support that. Sometimes twice a day on the grid as well, depending on how much time I had alongside my career, because that comes first, of course. That pays the bills. And it grew and grew and grew. And I would say in the last 18 months to 2 years, I've probably been a little bit less focused on posting every day on Instagram, and then trying to build things like my email list, which is beyond social and nobody can ever deal with that. And then more recently, in the last 12 months, the podcast, which is just a little bit more fulfilling in terms of having those longer form, more impactful conversations. It's fantastic. I've managed to have a positive influence on you, Shane, with a post on Instagram. But like I say, it's a picture-based app. So you sometimes have to move away from that and try and deliver value on a platform that's more set to your strengths, which for me, I hope to think, is speaking in longer form content.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? Your Instagram too, you post little snippets of your podcast, don't you? Which is cool, because that's sort of what I do as well. And you can get off little points across and bring people from Instagram over to listen to the full episode. So it works kind of hand in hand, isn't it? But yeah, I think I do prefer the whole podcast side of things, because I just love talking to people. You don't really have that interaction. It's just likes for me don't really mean nothing. That, you know, they're cool and that, but they don't really mean much. It's just, you know, it's great to see people actually seeing my post, but like, who's actually liking the post deep down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It's very surface level on Instagram, where the engagement, like you say, is a double tap. Sometimes, even, to be fair, I do it myself. I'll scroll the feed and I'll see people's posts who I want to support, and I'll double tap it without even reading, because I want them to get that gratification, that support of a like, and maybe a save if it's helping. Because we don't want to go down the rabbit hole of the algorithm, but supporting your friends' posts is obviously important, because you want them to be seen by other people. But sometimes I'm like, well, I don't really want to read that today. But that's the nature of the app. Whereas on the podcast, if somebody's going to give 45, 60 minutes of their time, best believe they're going to be quite engaged with what you've got to say, and they'll probably hopefully take a lot of value away from it.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And you know what, I just want to talk actually about, because it just popped into my head. I was listening to a audiobook today, and it's talking about the more successful you grow, the more haters you're going to have. It's part and parcel of being successful, etc. So as your Instagram has grown and your pictures have gone out there to the masses, have you received haters because of your physique?
I actually got asked this for somebody that's designing software to deal with trolling recently. And I would say genuinely, I've probably had 3 messages in the 4.5 years on Instagram that have been generally beyond the pale. And considering I've posted something like 1,700 times across that period on the grid, that's not a lot, is it? And
No, not at all.
And I guess those 3 messages were unpleasant, but they weren't particularly hard for me. I'm quite a self-assured person, particularly by the time I was receiving these messages. So that doesn't particularly bother me. But my worry would be that somebody like that sends unpleasant messages is exposed to somebody who's maybe in their infancy of content creation, and it puts them off. Or maybe it's somebody that's quite experienced in content creation, but has more insecurities about something. So this particular individual, of the 3, one of them effectively, I think something along the lines of, why do you keep posting other people's quotes as motivation for people? when you should be fixing your teeth, Bugs Bunny. And I thought that was quite funny. I was like, oh, right, okay, well, you obviously hope that maybe me having a kind of toothy smile, a kind of buck teeth would unsettle me. So they've kind of picked something that they think, oh, I hope that'll unsettle. Whereas maybe they do that to another individual and they maybe pick, I don't know, oh, what about that spot on your chin or something like that, and it really unsettles somebody and it stops them maybe putting themselves out there to the world. And the fact of the matter is, anyone that goes and trolls on somebody's page has a truly tragic existence, and they're actually to be pitied more than fought with or argued with. And especially if you leave them to like scream into the void, particularly if it ends up in your request folder because they don't know you've read it. Leave them to it. Like, just picture them in the padded cell and the straitjacket, just screaming into the void abuse at you. That is very much my approach to how you would deal with trolls. That's like genuine abuse, Shane, if that answers your question. But alongside that, of course, putting out content, you get debate and maybe criticism of a particular idea you put out there. The podcast has probably generated that more than most. I've not had any, hugely controversial episodes, but when you speak about topics like mental health, personal responsibility, finances, fitness, inevitably somebody's going to come along with a different interpretation, or even if they've only listened to a 30-second clip, what we were talking about, you don't get the context of the whole 60-minute discussion. So you might jump on it and be like, oh, disagree with this guy, don't like that.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely spot on. And it actually happened to me with the podcast. And it was on my first episode. And it was about this 57-year-old guy that I was talking to that wanted to, retired. He wanted to turn his life around. And he had this goal in 10 years to be financially free, be on a yacht and have 300 grand in his bank account. His name's Perry Wilson, for everyone that wants to check him out. First episode, great guy. And he's actually on track to doing that. He's doing that through property. He works 70 hours a week as a cab driver. And I put a little clip of that on my Facebook just to show my friends, this is my podcast. This guy is amazing. This guy is absolutely amazing. It proves it doesn't matter what age you are, you can turn your finances around. And, there was the one person in particular that was just hating on him, saying, well, it's not all about money and it's not this. And, it's a lot. There was other few things that they said, and I was just saying, well, how about you just listen to the episode, and it will change your mind. And someone else who's close to me said, oh, they sound like a bit of a dick when I told them about the story, the background. But I said, let's sit down now and listen to the episode. So we sat down for the hour. I sat down with this person, not the Facebook person, but a different person. Listen to the episode, and by the end, they went, I really like that guy. You gave him. You just got to give these people a chance. It's unfair. It just goes to show how quick people are to judge. But that is the world we live in. That is the world that we will live in forever. I believe. I don't think that will ever change.
No, certainly not. And it's a really interesting point, because I'm quite guilty of this. I think we all are, that we filter our social media feeds to have views that reinforce our own. And I think that's important sometimes from a mental health and well-being perspective, in terms of seeing things that don't necessarily trigger us or set us off every day. So if you absolutely hate Donald Trump, don't have him on your feed. If you absolutely hate Joe Biden, don't have him on your feed. But sometimes if you shut yourself off completely from the other side of the discussion, you can end up in a position where if you even see a little hint of it through maybe a friend's content, then you just go off on one, and you haven't given yourself the chance to challenge your viewpoint in the slightest. And that certainly sounds like maybe somebody who maybe hasn't thought about their finances, or maybe believes himself to be kind of holier than thou in terms of money isn't important to me, has heard somebody talk quite passionately about money, like this gentleman that you've had on your first episode. And it's been like a trigger point for them, because they never ever consume anything that people talk about being aspirational with their finances. So it's kind of a red rag to a bull, so to speak, which is really interesting. And I think there's elements of, sometimes it's important to listen or read something that's a little bit challenging to you. Maybe don't pick something at the extreme end of the spectrum away from yourself, but somebody who is quite reasoned and puts forward a good case. And like I say, consume the whole thing, as you said to your friend.
Yeah, exactly. And I think someone like yourself and myself, we're open to listen to the other side of the argument and discuss like adults, right? And my mind has been, in the past 2 to 3 years, and go as far as since 2017, I've had a complete mindset change, and it's taken a long time to get to this point. But like, I can go into two sides of an argument now. I'm very diplomatic in my approach to a lot of things, and my mind can be changed. Not saying easily, but like I'm open to listening to one side and another side, and then coming to my conclusion. Whether this person, as you said, they just jumped at the side that they know, and they didn't have an open mind to learn something new.
Yeah, of course. And it's a really hard pill to swallow, isn't it, when we get told we need to be more diplomatic and listen more. But it's certainly a skill that I'm trying to work on, and I think many of us could improve on, and it opens us up to having more rounded views, or at least maybe it reinforces what we do think, which is never a bad thing if it gives you confidence from a kind of fact-based perspective.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Cool. So let's go dive into, obviously, fitness fanatic. So you talked about fitness can contribute to your success, whether that be in investing or your business or just having a successful and healthy mindset. So if you want to talk about that, then.
Yeah, of course, Shane. I think for me, to operate at peak performance in one area of your life gives you momentum and reassurance that you can operate in peak performance in other areas. So for me, the foundation as a young guy at university, in terms of building my confidence and building my authority as an individual, came from improving my physical stature. Now, some people might find that quite a difficult thing to hear, but by me developing a more muscular physique made me feel more confident. I spoke out more in tutorials. I felt more confident presenting. I felt more confident to apply for sales jobs and do those jobs. And it was like a snowball effect, in terms of, by succeeding in one area of my life, in terms of building a physique that I was proud of and happy with, I was able to be confident in terms of cold calling. I was confident in terms of speaking to a prospect. I was confident in terms of negotiating, and all these things lead into each other. I think fitness is quite an easy entry point as well, because there's so much scope for improvement. Look at the general population nowadays, and this is not designed to upset any of your audience, but 60% of the UK population are obese. And that is an indisputable fact that too many people are carrying too much weight, and it is one affecting their health, but no doubt about it, in my experience, it probably affects how they live their life in terms of their energy levels as well. So if you are not at peak performance in your fitness, and I'm not talking about walking around shredded with a six pack, you don't have to go to that extreme, but being healthy, lean, fit, active regularly, it will leave you energized for other areas of your life, like your career, like your investing, like your self-development. So listening to your podcast, reading your books. Whereas there's the stereotype of fat and lazy, and that's a horrible stereotype. But quite often you do find that people who are overweight don't have the energy to put into other areas of their life that they might do if they were more on point with their exercise and their nutrition. And that's a very bitter pill to swallow. And that's only me speaking from experience. And I think I'll caveat all of that, Shane, before I come back to you with I've worked with loads of people in business development that are overweight and very, very good at their jobs. I've also worked with people who are a bit more like me, in terms of they like to train 4, 5, 6 days a week. They like to go for their morning walk. They like to meal prep and eat the kind of foods that make their body feel good, and they're fucking good at their job as well. So I know which side of the fence that I sit on to be the best version of Colin Campbell. I like to be on point with my fitness, and it drives me into other areas. But equally, there are people out there who completely buck that trend and do the same. But I know that for me, myself, I need to be in that other column.
Yeah, you know what? When you said that caveat then about how there is overweight people that are massively successful about, in their job and what they do, that is one of the arguments, isn't it? But you're right. I think for me as well, I would rather be, have a nice physique. But yeah, it's not all about looks, but it's about being healthy on the inside, eating the right foods. Because again, going back to myself, I decided to go to the gym properly only about 2.5 years ago, and my mindset, just working on my mindset, just going to the gym every time. Like, the hardest bit about the gym is getting to the gym. and everyone wants to say that. But once you're in it and you go for about 3 months and you discipline that habit, you end up loving the gym because you're easily reminded of the feeling of working out. And once you work, like today, I went to the gym after work for like, quick 40-minute workout, and I felt good. And my colleague who was saying about the abs, he was like, I've started to look, because he's quite big, he's overweight, wants to lose weight, so I'm kind of helping him, teaching about calorie deficit and that sort of thing. And I'm saying, like, it's the first time he's looked into the mirror and seen his arms because they've got a pump on. He's like, oh, I never like to look at myself in the mirror. And we've been going to the gym now for 4 weeks, and he's, I was really proud of him. I was like, that's fantastic. And look at this mindset change now. You want to look at yourself. You want to look at your arms because they got a pump on. He's like, yeah, never felt like this before. I was like, this is what the gym can do for you. And he's like, yeah, I can't wait till the gym's open now. He's going to join a gym with me after lockdown. So yeah, just mindset alone. I think you don't have to, like, as you said, physically look amazing, but just to feel better, have more energy, clearer mind. It's an absolute no-brainer, and I know the side I'll be on as well.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, and it's such a great example with your colleague. And you mentioned the H word, habits, which I'm absolutely massive on, in terms of you built that habit of that kind of first 3 months, 2.5 years ago, getting into the gym, going regularly during the week, feeling the benefits. So your colleague's feeling the benefits after just 4 weeks. I mean, he's probably going to stick those 3 months out. It's going to become ingrained and it'll become a lifestyle choice for him. And for me as a habit, it's one of the easiest ways to enhance your day, whether that's before or after work. The endorphins you're going to feel carry over into other things that you do, the clarity of mind you spoke about from exercise. I genuinely don't think there's ever a bad workout that you have, and that sounds so cliche. The only bad workout you had was the one you didn't do, and that kind of thing. The sort of thing you see on somebody's Instagram with a ripped six pack that isn't really giving out any value apart from that. I mean, there's some merit in what they're saying, but it's not really helpful because it's not giving you the steps to do it.
Yeah.
But for me, if I've had a challenging day at work, I absolutely want to go to the gym and challenge myself physically and mentally. And particularly at the stage of my training that it's at, for me to make progression, I really need to do some pretty nasty stuff to myself with the weights in terms of the kind of the movements that I'm going to put myself through and the kind of sets and the reps and the kind of intensity I need to bring to the table to see a change in my physique naturally at this point in time. So that for me is yet again another vote for the kind of person that you are. So if you're the kind of person that can take it balls to the wall in a set of squats or on the leg press and really put your legs through turmoil, are you going to shy away from a cold call to a prospect that told you to fuck off last time? No, because I'm the type of person that does the hard thing. And that reinforces my belief through exercise into my business life that no, I'm not going to back down from this. I can take myself to a place where I'm a bit uncomfortable, but guess what? I'm still going to deliver.
And that, you've just gave the perfect example how, your fitness can work into your mindset of going forward, like in business and doing things you wouldn't normally do because you're scared of or you're shy. So yeah, that's absolutely spot on. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like anyone who's listening to this that has never gone to the gym or is a bit too scared, because there's that whole mentality as well of like people are going to look at me in the gym. But if I'm honest with you, this is what I used to think 3 years ago. And I was shit scared of going to the gym because of all these beastie guys. But I'll be honest with you, they don't give a shit that you're there. They're there for them, not you. To go, no one gives a shit. Do your thing. Put your headphones in. Listen to some heavy metal, drum and bass, whatever it is, and get a pump on, I say.
Yeah, just on that whole people looking at you in the gym, only time somebody will look at you is if you do something really catastrophic and like maybe you look like you might injure yourself or you or maybe you're looking at them lots in terms of staring at them in terms of what are they doing, like making them uncomfortable. And one of the best ways you can do it is the same in any kind of networking or business event. The gym, most people are there for the same purpose and they're mostly quite happy to say hello to you. I say hello to loads of people in the gym who I don't know their name because we go at the same time on a weeknight at 5:30 and we know each other. Oh, hi mate, how's your session? Yeah, good. How you getting on? Yeah, what are you training tonight? And you build up these kind of quote unquote gym friends or gym acquaintances. And you have this shared respect for each other. Now, I'm going to caveat
Yeah.
that there are some gyms where you will get guys that just want to mean mug you and try and look hard and intimidating. But even then, they're not interested in what you're doing. They probably are more focused on, can they see another vein in their bicep? Or can I get another rep on my bench press this week, than what's that boy over there doing with those dumbbells? It just doesn't come into their thought process, because we've all got that same kind of hour and 10 minutes to get in and out the gym. So they're not interested in what you're up to at all.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, you're right. Like, I have had people come up to me before because they see my technique was a bit. This is when I was a newbie, and one of my techniques was a bit wrong. And I'm glad that they came over, because I could have injured myself. So they showed me how to do it, and now I can do it better than what I was doing before because they showed me. So if anything, people are there to help you as well. Like, they're not there to intimidate you. And I think those gyms you mentioned that you will get, veiny dickheads, they're probably more at, would you say they're more at the kind of underground or like privately owned gym sort of thing? You get the franchise gyms. It's not, you don't really get those guys there, do you?
Yeah, it really varies, because particularly when I've maybe done preps for photo shoots and stuff like that, I've quite liked training your kind of more bodybuilding, less commercial gyms. And you'd be surprised at how friendly the people are there, because they take their training so seriously. They want you to do well as well in some ways. And actually, the most looks that I've got in gyms has been in like a pure gym in a city centre, in a city that I've been away for work in, and people have been like, "Oh, who's this guy in his vest with his biceps out or whatever?" And that's fine as well. I kind of welcome that. I appreciate something that will look a bit different, because I'm typically quite lean, but yeah, it's funny. I think it varies wildly depending on the city as well. I live in Glasgow, and it's quite a friendly city typically. Although, obviously, you're always going to get the odd person that bucks that trend and kind of wants to look at you. The most intimidating gym I've been in was in East London. What was that called? It was like an easy gym, and it was wild. Like, dumbbells all over the place, like not on the rack was right there, but people were just leaving them everywhere, and it was just chaos. And it was one of those ones where it was kind of like, I don't know, some sort of gangland that I was in. So, but that again, Easy Gym's it's like orange branding. It's a commercial gym, but no, we're way off track there. But like I say, people are mostly focused on their own achievements, their own fitness. People will probably comment and try and help you out if they think you're doing something dangerous or wrong. One of the ways to caveat that is apps like bodybuilding.com, Body Space. You can type in whatever exercise you've got in your program that you want to do, and there's form videos. Or, great resource, if you're watching this on YouTube, open up another tab and you can do the same. You can do the same in terms of single arm dumbbell row, or barbell back squat, or bodyweight sissy squat. Whatever you're doing, there will be 3 or 4 videos that will do a form tutorial and talk you through it, and you can put yourself in a comfortable position. And then beyond that, there are so many good coaches online nowadays, and I'm lucky to be acquainted with a lot of them, that can support you in your initial kind of 6 to 12 weeks, and it'll put you way ahead of 90% of what most people are doing in the gym.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Just use use YouTube to your advantage. Take it like you learn everything else on YouTube. Yeah, fitness as well. 100%. Yeah, spot on. Cool. So, on the show notes that I sent you, I wanted to talk about fitness fads. And I like to talk about this to personal trainers and people that are in the fitness industry and like fitness in general, about people that use things like diet shakes and things like that. So what's your take on those sort of things for people that want to take them, or the people that sell them in like a pyramid scheme type? Yeah. Had any experience with people in your circle selling those sort of things before, or anything like that?
Yeah, nobody in my direct circle, but given, like you said, I've built a following on Instagram, I'll be approached to join these things regularly. Herbalife probably been the most prevalent, well-known one, but there's so many different variations of Herbalife in terms of these kind of meal replacement shakes, which effectively is a very short, intense period of borderline starvation in terms of putting you into a significant calorie deficit through maybe having 400 or 500 calories worth of liquid shakes per day. Inevitably, you're going to drop weight because nobody's, and I'm going to use a few terms that I'll try and explain them as best as possible. Like metabolic rate is so low that they won't lose weight. If you eat 400 or 500 calories a day for a couple of weeks, your weight is going to go like this. But as soon as you start to increase your caloric intake again, given some of the cravings that you've developed because you've not been eating real food, you will gain weight back quite significantly and potentially even put yourself in a worse position in terms of both your relationship with food, but maybe even your body weight. So for me, these shakes and these kind of short-term cleanses are a terribly short-term solution to what is a lifestyle problem rather than something that you can fix with a short, sharp blitz of a diet. Interestingly, I do sometimes think that some people almost need to go through one of these things to realize that they need to find a more sustainable, health-based and a solution they can actually adhere to, because many of my friends that are coaches take people on who've maybe done Slimming World or Weight Watchers or a form of kind of I don't want to say they're not fad diets, they are genuine diets, and they do get some people results, particularly the very obese. To move them in the right direction by being aware of what they're eating is actually a good thing. Some of it's actually a form of tracking. So like sins and weight, I'm probably misleading, but Sins and Weight Watchers or Slimming World is a form of tracking calories. They do give some free foods like free pasta and stuff like that, which is just wild when you consider the calorie content in that.
Yeah, massive.
But for me, they can be like a gateway to tracking your calories through MyFitnessPal, being aware of a protein target, being aware of what foods are calorie dense, what foods are very voluminous in terms of calories. So for me, these things are a negative in the fitness industry because they sell you this sexy, short-term, instant gratification solution, which ultimately is a pipe dream. If you want sustainable, long-term results in terms of losing the weight that you've never been able to keep off since school, then you need to take a more sustainable, education-based, science-based approach. And unfortunately, that isn't as sexy. It doesn't sell as much. And it takes people a little while to get their head around it, and maybe a little bit of discipline, a little bit of inertia to get over the kind of difficulty of it when you're starting. And that's a lot harder to do than it is to say, oh, I'm going to detox this month and I'm going to lose a stone. Yeah, great. But you have no idea how you did that. You didn't stick to it. So you actually only lost half a stone and then you put it back on within 2 weeks. So who's really won there?
Yeah, it's so tough, isn't it? And like I was saying to my personal trainer, I think things like I mean, I know it's taught to a degree in physical education in in sixth form, but like most people that do pick physical education at that age are fit anyway. So I think it should be taught at a lower age group about food and calories and even go as far as macros, but that's just my opinion. What's your thoughts on that? Getting properly educated from an earlier age on food?
Oh, I would absolutely teach about energy balance. I teach it in science. I wouldn't even teach it in physical education.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be there too. Maybe you could go more into the food, but I would teach about caloric energy balance in terms of what goes in your body equates to roughly what goes out, then weight is maintained. If there's a difference in terms of a surplus, so excess calories come in and not enough calories go out, then weight goes up. And then the opposite being the kind of infamous calorie fucking deficit is something that James Smith would say.
James Smith, yeah.
which honestly, I actually like a lot of people in the fitness industry don't like him. A lot of people love him. For me, his message is so simple and so clear. Once you dig under the surface, there's a lot of fundamentals that he goes through, which is fantastic. But to get your attention, he's just trying to cut through the bullshit and come in with the message that ultimately people need to understand they need to consume less calories than they're using through walking, breathing, sleeping, eating, training than they're putting in order to lose the weight that they've never done so. But yeah, I would love if we introduced that to the curriculum in schools. But honestly, nowadays with the body positive movement, which has gone so far away from actual health, it would surprise me if that makes its way onto the curriculum without somebody, I don't know, somebody who wants to identify as a plant getting upset.
You know, don't get me started on that, but I think that conversation right there is for a different episode.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. It would be a game changer if it was brought into schools for sure. But you know, speaking of James Smith, actually, that I'm kind of glad you brought him up, because that's kind of brought us nicely into like my next questions actually. But as I say, I'm quite a fan of James Smith as well. I like that he's very blunt. You know, he says it how it is, and I read his comments all the time, and so many people disagree with him, and there's always like arguments going on, and it's just amazing to see that he's been promoting calorie fucking deficit for a long time, and people still don't get it. But anyway, but goes on to my next point with, he put a post up the other day that I disagreed with, and it was about investing, because of obviously Bitcoin's the big talk at the moment, cryptocurrencies. And because I personally feel he doesn't know really what he's talking about when it comes to finance. And there was a lot of backlash. Even I got involved in the comments, because he was just saying about investing and how like money doesn't bring you happiness and all this. And he's like, and then people were saying, stick to what you know, James, just stick to fitness, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, that's what I wanted to come on to next, was investing. And so tell us a bit about what you invest in, Colin, and how you got into investing.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, James Smith's currency of choice, if we're talking investing language, is attention and engagement. So by putting something out there, it's a bit controversial. You got conversation going in the comments. We're talking about him, so potentially listeners from this will go out and check in. That they'll check in some of those posts and be like, "I don't agree," or "I do agree," and that's the business that he's in. To answer your question in full, then investing. So at a young age, probably towards the end of university, when I got my first graduate job and I started to get an actual salary, my number one goal while living at home with my parents was, I want to buy a property. So I started to save for a deposit. And perhaps naively, I just kept squirreling that away into a cash ISA every year alongside I had my current account, I had my savers ISA, whatever it was, where I think I got 1% interest a year. And alarmingly enough, I think about the thousands that I could have, or maybe tens of percent at least, I could have tried to gain on that if I'd been a bit more clever. But that effect pretty much led me to, from the end of, or kind of mid 2014 through until January 2019, when I bought my first property. My brother and I actually went in together. I had a slightly bigger deposit because he's younger than I am and had been working less time. But we bought a flat together in the area that we grew up in, Bearsden, which is one of the kind of nicest areas in Scotland to live in. So it was quite a kind of prestigious event for our family to be able to do that, which meant a lot. Awesome. I'd had a good couple of years in work in terms of hitting my bonuses. And again, that just went straight into the saving funds for the deposit. So we bought a property together. We put a 20% deposit down. I knew about interest rates to some extent. So we overpaid the mortgage. So I suppose that's an investment in some form.
Yep.
Probably about 6 months before that, one of my friends was talking to me about compound interest. And he was talking about index funds and stocks and shares. And I started to put into a Hargreaves Lansdown account. I set up a separate ISA. So I now had two ISAs, and I was like, this is amazing. One was the stocks and shares ISA. One was this kind of ISA that I was using to save for my deposit. And I started to invest in two different funds, both of which in the years that my friend had been investing for 2 years had returned between 8 and 15%. So not terrible, and pretty passive in terms of, I basically allocated, I think it was 15% of my after-tax salary into that, because I had fairly low living expenses, living at home, paying a bit of rent to my parents for kind of dig money. Through the Instagram I pretty much paid for my interest in fitness in terms of my deals with my protein and muscle food. Yep. And some gyms as well. So I didn't really have many outgoings, especially considering the fact I don't really drink either. So main expenses were golf, rangers, and socializing and food, really, which are quite manageable on a decent salary while living at home. So that was my first foray into investing in mid 2018. Property was bought in 2019. So that was probably my start point, but it's developed since then, which I'm sure we can get into too.
Yep. Yeah, no, spot on. So sounds like you've been investing then, or kind of known about investments for a little while now actually. So I think there's actually, I'd go to say that 2020, since the pandemic, people have decided they want to start making money and they want to sec passive income. It's kind of like side hustles, passive income, financially free, all these buzzwords. Um, People want to start to get in control of their finances, and this word invest. And only last year I feel that in the word invest now everyone kind of wants to do it, and all these in fact just a broker called Free Trade, they've had such an influx of new customers, especially since that whole GameStop situation, and it's absolutely insane. Brokers were crashing, weren't they? And the SEC in America were getting involved, and absolutely crazy. So yeah, sorry, going a bit off topic there, but yeah, investing as a whole sounds like you've kind of got in before the so-called quote unquote rush. But yeah, so you've got your property now. Is it the property you're living in now? Is that the same one that you bought with your brother, right?
Yeah, correct, Shane. So we still live there together. We still owe paying the mortgage. But we're both, so I'm 28 and Ian is 25, 2026 this year. So we're both of an age where circumstances could change. Maybe we would move in with a partner, or move for work or something like that. And we'd have to kind of look at what we would do with that. Equally, the property we bought, the lady that owned it before us rented out for 12 years. So we do know that there is appetite for it to be a rental property, and that would have a decent return. And having done some research on things like Rightmove, etc., we saw that the amount that she was charging as a rent was higher than what we're paying by our mortgage by a decent way. So we would be quite comfortable to cover things like council tax and whatnot through all that, which is great. And I guess property, and you definitely are more in that space than I am. And I think previous guest on my show is a connection of a mutual connection of ours, Justin Wilkins, is very much in that property space.
Yeah.
And I probably until May 2020 wanted a second property with my brother and I was kind of chastising him to get another deposit saved. But having read Andrew Craig's How to Own the World, he's a little bit more of a bear on property than I was at that time, and he was more encouraging of the stock market and assets like gold and silver. So that's maybe where my focus has turned a little bit more to, particularly in terms of how busy I am in terms of with social media alongside my career, which it means that I'm maybe a little bit more in favor of passive investments for me moving forward. And definitely that's what my brother's gone down that route as well. And for me, I've now upped my percentage allocation that goes into stocks and shares into an index fund. I've maybe dabbled a bit more with particular stocks. So you talk about GameStop, definitely not to the same level of controversy, but CCIV was a huge focus for a lot of people. With their mergers with Lucid, and I was in on that and saw amazing returns at first, and then it kind of all calmed down in terms of the hype was a bit too much in terms of the price. So although there was a profit from kind of, I think, $17 a share up to 32, which is great, it was up at 60 at one point. So I thought, Jesus, this is going to be a crazy return. But yeah, so I'm probably a wee bit more aware of things like that now. And you've dropped the B word already, Bitcoin. I have a little bit of Bitcoin since November 20. I had a couple of gentlemen who are crypto consultants, nice guys, that are both from Glasgow that I know quite well through the gym. They were on the podcast on my show, and we're talking about crypto in general, particularly Bitcoin. And I kind of have a decent amount of belief in the project in terms of maybe looking at it as digital gold in some ways, because it's that same finite principle in terms of there's a finite amount that can be mined, and hopefully it should hold its value. And I think if we look at what's happening in the market, although it's still very volatile, it does go up as our government continue to follow the policy of quantitative easing, and interest rates continue to be how they are, and inflation continues to be a massive enemy of all of us, Shane, I suppose, in terms of our spending power.
100%, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I think, I mean, I'm a holder of Bitcoin, but
Yep.
I'm not bullish on it, but I'm not bearish either. I'm just monthly deposits. I will allocate, 50% of, so a percentage of my wage goes into my BlockFi account, and then I will allocate a percentage of that to Bitcoin and a percentage to Ethereum.
Okay.
I quite like those cryptocurrencies. They're kind of the leading two, and so I just do that once a month, and it's kind of hands off. I don't care if it drops by 50% tomorrow. I'd still be investing, because I believe, for me, and I've got a lot to learn about cryptocurrencies. I'm no expert. I've recently bought a book on cryptocurrencies, but that it is the future. I mean, in fact, where I buy my physical gold, you can purchase gold with Bitcoin. And that's a London store which you can just walk into. And Lamborghini, I'm sure you can buy buy a Lamborghini with Bitcoin as well. See, PayPal, that they bought a shit ton of Bitcoin. Obviously, what happened with Tesla, Bitcoin. So I believe it's there for the future. Whether or not what the price will be in the future, I can't tell you that. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely a hedge against inflation, and it's the same with physical gold. For me, it's a hedge against inflation, as well as it preserves my wealth as well. Whereas Bitcoin doesn't preserve my wealth to an extent because of the fact of the volatility of it. Yeah. It's up and down, but yeah, I'm in it. People say, why did you do it? Again, because I'm in it because I believe it's in the future, and it's beating inflation at the moment, tenfold plus. So yeah, I mean, are you just in the Bitcoin space, or do you hold any other cryptocurrencies?
I use the Swissborg app, so I've got the Swissborg coin as well. And effectively, what I did is, I think it would have been late February where we saw it go to 57,000, I think it was, dollars per coin, maybe 56. But another all-time high. I took some profit, and I kept the profit in the app, and I just put it into Swissborg, which is a tiny coin, like it's worth less than $1 per coin. So I hold a little bit of that. Again, I was like you. I was kind of, I think a new term to me was dollar cost averaging, in terms of each month I was just popping in a little bit into Bitcoin, and then whenever it dipped, I was buying the dip. So for example, the other day, I think it went down to $28,000 or whatever, and I had a wee bit of a reminder on my phone to say, right, go and buy the dip. So I lumped in at that point a bit more than I would normally do in my monthly allocation. So it was kind of just the way I did it. But I think obviously a lot of the people that listen to this show, Shane, will be like much more active and excited investors. But for me, the Andrew Craig method through How to Own the World excited me about this kind of opportunity to have this passive income, like you said, to help us towards financial freedom when we're 40, 50, whatever age further down the line. And that excites me, in that if I do the basics right, I can hopefully beat inflation to some extent. I can set myself up to get better than average returns that you would get from a bank account, thank God.
100%.
And put myself in a position where I'm financially in a good position when I'm older. And things like my kind of more adventurous stuff with Bitcoin, initially it started very much as the icing on the cake, and now I think it very much actually forms part of the cake in terms of being a kind of fundamental, like you say, hedge against inflation.
Yeah, no, spot on, and it's part and parcel of having a diversified portfolio, isn't it? Like, you're in your index fund, you got a couple of individual stocks, and there you got your Bitcoin. So yeah, I think diversification is absolutely essential, and that's what Andrew Craig advocates, doesn't he, in his book, which is, I'm sure you'll agree, it's like one of the best books on investing of all time.
Yeah, incredible. And I was fortunate to have Andrew on the podcast, and he was a brilliant guest. And you know how you said that 2020 was kind of the year when a lot of people started to think about investing. Honestly, 2021, I'm fortunate the podcast is doing really well, but that podcast continually finishes in the top 3 plays of that week. And it's obviously, I think it was released in November, and we're in March 2021 now.
Wow.
And it's getting hundreds of listens a week, in kind of third spot behind my new release and maybe one other episode. And that's, for me, a sign that people are still being like, right, I need to learn more about how to own the world, how to start investing. And I think that's exciting that more young guys who are primarily my demographic are getting involved in that space.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. I loved like saying to people, learning learning the whole principles of investing and then teaching that to them and saying, obviously, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not advising them anything, but I'm saying, like, here's the resources. Go and read Andrew Craig's book. Look into investing. It will absolutely change your life. It doesn't have to be difficult. You can make it as easy as you want it to be, can't you? You can automate investing, for God's sake. 2021, we're not living in the 80s anymore with pink slips and notes and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, my Vanguard account's completely automated for a couple of funds, and you can actually, some of my self-employed personal trainer online coach friends who are doing really, really well at the moment, because they're self-employed, they have no pension. So they effectively set up one of these life strategy accounts on Vanguard, picked a theoretical retirement date, and it basically sets your allocation between equity and bonds based on that, which, how exciting is that? You can just, like you say, passive, like automated investing. And the best thing was a lot of them were kind of saying to me, again, it wasn't advice, but they were saying, oh, but what did you do? Like what do you do if like the market goes to shit or whatever? And I said, well, in March 2020, the market went through the floor, as it would have anyone listening to this looked at their H&L account or looked at their Vanguard account, they would have thought, shit. And the worst thing you could have fucking done was to sell. The best thing you do, hold or buy more. Buy at the low price, because it's only going to go up, because that was a traumatic event that we were always going to get over, because it was based on a disease which we can control, although we're doing our best not to, or hide from it, depending on what's the side of the fence or where you sit on that kind of debate. But for me, it was absolutely a great time to just up your allocation or sit tight in your allocation. Don't sell. Don't be scared. And I think if, for example, Bitcoin, which is a really volatile thing, if it was to go to like sub 10,000 towards its kind of lowest again, I would buy more, because I'm convinced. I'm not convinced. I'm very confident it would go back up again. And you kind of have to have confidence in what you're doing monthly and kind of detach yourself from the emotion of the roller coaster that is investing.
Yeah, do. And I think just along with that as well, whatever you do invest and allocate to, your cryptocurrencies and your index funds, make sure it's money you can afford to lose as well, of course. But that's just like the number one rule, isn't it? And obviously, as long as you don't mind losing that, I'd be gutted if I did lose it all, but I was prepared to lose it all.
Yeah, so true. I think another one of our mutual connections, Aaron Knightley, speaks about an emergency fund, which I just love the concept of. So for me, instantly accessible for me within my cash ISA, which I'm not going to pay. Well, I mean, I don't get anything on it anyway, is enough to me to cover 8 months, or I think between 8 to 10 months of my mortgage payments, and a kind of sum that I can use that if, for example, the boiler broke or my shower started leaking, I could get a tradesperson out and I could cover that. And that's instantly accessible, no penalty, no problems. And that's like my base layer. So none of that will ever get invested, because I want immediate access to it. I know it's maybe going backwards a little bit, and it may be better off sitting in a Vanguard that goes up 8 to 10% a year, but I have immediate access to it, which reassures me.
I agree. And I think, and with that, the emergency fund as well, if anybody can find one, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, Colin, try and, split that across multiple bank accounts that are earning better interest rates. So for instance, I have 4 bank accounts. One of them's earning 1.5% interest. One of them's earning 2%. I mean, the small amounts in retrospect, but the reason why the small amounts in there is because any more than that, and there'll be an interest penalty on the interest. So I have to keep it capped at like a couple of grand to get that 2% interest. But that's kind of a smart way of separating your money and earning interest on your emergency fund as well. And in case, Aaron, our mutual friend, he talks about when banks have gone bust in the past and people wanted to get their money out, but they can't. So it's kind of less riskier as well to have multiple bank accounts too.
Yeah, I think that's a great kind of education piece there around that, because like you say, I think you're insured up to £85,000, but say you had £50,000 sitting in a bank account. If you went into a bank and wanted to take that out, you would have to go through a serious rigmarole to withdraw £50,000. And let's say that, and I think again, this is one of Aaron's examples when he gets quite passionate about this, but it certainly fires me up as well.
Yeah.
If 100 of us all had money with NatWest and we all had 50 grand sitting there and we all wanted to take it out, they would put up every barrier under the sun available to them to stop you doing that, because that money isn't sitting there waiting for you to. They're playing with that in the market to try and grow it and get a better return than they're getting than they're giving us with the 1 or the 1.5%, as you've said.
Absolutely. So for everyone that is listening to this and this has blown their minds, whatever you read on your internet banking screen, that's just credit. It's literally just credit. It's not physical money until you have it in your hands. But obviously, I don't mean to scare anyone, but that's literally what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Alarming, isn't it? But
yeah,
I think when you educate yourself to a very base level, don't have to go as far as you, Shane. Don't even have to go as far as me, who's way behind you as well. Just a base level of understanding will make you in a much more likely position to be financially safe and secure when you're older, in order to provide for yourself, your family, whatever your financial goals are. So I think we kind of owe it to ourselves to put ourselves in a good position to understand these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100% spot on, mate. Cool. Yeah, love talking all things investing. So yeah, we're just coming to the final part of our show now, and I'm just going to ask all my guests 3 random questions.
Okay.
Although they're not really random, but I'll try and make them random because I've asked them so many times now, so I might change them up actually. All right, so question 1 for you actually, Colin. I know you'll like this one. What's your favorite energy drink?
Oh well, I think we both know anyone that's come across from my Instagram, and maybe even Shane's, because he's been tagging me and him having them.
Yeah.
It's the Monster Ultra, which for me, there's a number of flavors. I think the white will remain supreme because it's very, very, it ticks all the boxes. It's a little bit like lemonade, but maybe even nicer. And it's 0 calories, 150 mega caffeine, amazing for pre-workout, amazing if you're into intermittent fasting and you're maybe fasting in the morning, you can have that and it'll help suppress your appetite until later in the day. But for me, it's my pre-workout of choice, which always helps me and gets me through. There's a number of flavors out there. The one that's gaining a lot of hype at the moment is the Fiesta, which is kind of like a mango flavor almost, would you say, Shane?
Is that the full sugar one? Has it got sugar?
No. The Ultra Fiesta, the light blue one that I recommended you.
Sorry, yes, I did. I tried it for the first time the other day, and yeah, it's like Lilt. I found it is like Lilt, and it was bang on.
Yeah, so that's a good one as well. Honestly, I'm not going to rant and rave at people, but if anyone's drinking full sugar energy drinks, you need to screw your head on and save your calories for food. Because you can have like 60, 80 grams of carbs, which is a lot of oats, a lot of potatoes, a lot of pasta, a lot of rice, a lot of cereal, if you wanted to, that you're just drinking. So you might as well drink the 0 ones because they're so good nowadays. So for me, Shane, answer question number 1 has got to be the white Monster Ultra. Big fan.
Yeah, spot on. I love it. Just thought I'd have to get that in there, mate. Cool. All right, well, I'm a big movie buff, so I have to keep this question for all my guests. What's your favourite movie and why? Tough question, I know.
It is a tough question. As a sales guy, I think The Wolf of Wall Street is always one that I gravitate towards. In fact, Leo doing his whole cold call when he goes into the penny stocks trade is the background on my personal phone, not my work phone. I'm a big fan of that film. I don't know what I think of Jordan Belfort in real life. I'm not decided on him, but I certainly enjoyed that film and what he went through, and I appreciate the skills. And I actually, for my email list, I was writing the other day about one of his speeches in terms of how he uses his speech to make impact, and it's certainly things that I've learned about in terms of tone and delivery and going up and down in volume and accentuating. So for me, I think it's a great film, both from an entertainment perspective, but if people are looking at the impact of the spoken word, then there's not many films better than that. And equally, Margot Robbie is not bad to look at, is she, at all? Very, very, very enjoyable eye candy on the screen.
Yeah, I well, if my missus is listening, then no, she's disgusting. I don't like looking at Margot Robbie. Nah, it's a fantastic movie. But you know what, actually? that film has cropped up the most on this talk show. It's like, I think everyone that I interview that, what investing or people that want to be successful in life, they always resonate and gravitate towards that movie. So I'm going to ask you this, actually. If that film didn't exist, what would it be? What would your next film be?
So I'm going to sound like a DiCaprio fanboy here, but maybe Inception.
Class, yeah.
I just think because you're thinking so much throughout it, it's just brilliantly challenging in terms of which level of the dream is this and what will happen if this occurs in that dream. And he's kind of got this kind of demon past that he's trying to run from and rectify and fix, and that's almost the side plot to what he's actually doing in terms of his mission with Cobb. And it's incredible film. And I think, hold on, I'll try and bring something new. Hopefully nobody said this.
Okay.
The Prestige, have you seen it?
One of my favorite films. It's class.
Cool. So anyone that's seen it will always rank it in their top 5. But a lot of people actually strangely haven't seen it. I was really surprised when a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, I've never seen that." But yeah, huge fan of that, and the twists and the turns and the kind of the plot in that is incredible. So that there's my top 3. Then we've gone top 3, Shane.
Yeah, that's spot on. Yeah, love all 3 of those films, mate. Yeah, and definitely Prestige. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's absolutely fantastic. Okay, question 3. Oh, should I ask this one? All right, yeah, let's keep it simple. So, name something that grinds your gears. Now, this obviously you're quite, I'd say you're quite a happy guy, so not a lot pisses you off. I take it, you don't let things get to you. So, yeah, what pisses you off? What grinds your gears?
Yeah, I'm generally a really positive guy, Shane, and I like to bring the good energy. But there's definitely things that you see and you're like, oh God. For me, and this says more about my personality and a lot of things, but people that promise a lot in terms of, you see it on social media all the time, great content coming, guys, or I'm gonna do this in 2021. So like in the fitness space, it might be, I'm gonna prep for this bodybuilding show in May. I'm gonna win it, I'm gonna smash it out of the park, I'm gonna turn up and blow everyone's socks off. Or somebody like, oh, I'm starting a YouTube, or somebody will say, oh, I'm starting a YouTube channel. Keep your eyes peeled for great content. Or the worst one was at the start of the last pandemic when everyone, their granny, started a podcast and most people got about 3 episodes in and fell off. And that's fine because it's hard, and bodybuilding preps for shows are hard, and creating a successful YouTube channel is hard. Doing a podcast is really arduous, and you have to put in a lot of groundwork, which I'm sure you're somebody vouch for that, Shane. But promising and kind of shouting about things before you've even tried to move down the line with it, that grinds my gears a little bit, because I'd much rather kind of work a little bit in silence and hold a little bit of stuff back. So for me, I do think it's good sometimes to verbalize and speak out to the world in terms of what your intentions are, and it can sometimes hold you accountable. But if you're making this big noise, this big thumping, bang the drum, and then it turns out a bit of a damp squib, that grinds my gears a little bit, Shane. I think maybe you should have just shut up and done the work, and then let your success be the noise, and then kind of take the adulation. So for me, I was actually guilty of this with my own podcast. I was telling probably 5 or 6 close friends in July 2019, going to start a podcast. I've been on 6 as a guest, really enjoyed it. I can't wait to start. Here's who I'm going to speak to and have on, listed like 10 people. I've written the outlines. I've bought the mic. I've got the adapter for my laptop. And you know what? It took me until March 2020 to do it. Don't worry, I haven't fallen off, and I've done 60 episodes since then. So I'm in a good position. But I know that I made a little bit of noise and I didn't deliver. And when I see other people doing it, it frustrates me, because I know we can all do better. We can stop deceiving ourselves and actually do the work.
Yeah, that's actually a really good answer, actually, and a very, very valid one too. And you did say something there as well, how you kind of feel like you should do a bit of the work first before you make some noise, and that's how I kind of felt when I started the Instagram. And in fact, pretty much anything that I do, like when I've created music in the past, or when I said I was going to DJ, I didn't tell anyone. Like, I was quite probably far into, so my DJing kind of career a few years ago, for example, I was DJing for a good year or 2 years, quite low key. and then before I became more known because I was getting releases on Beatport and whatever. And then people were like, "Oh, I didn't know you was a DJ." I was like, "I don't tell anyone," you know. So it's kind of like you let. I always used to say, "I let my music do the talking." I know that might sound a bit big headed to some people, but like I didn't. I'm never one to go, "Yeah, I'm going to do this and this and this," and then I've not followed through because I mean, some people might say it to kind of hold themselves accountable, but you don't do it, then you just look like a bit of a dick.
It's so true, and like like I was saying around the podcast, see those 5 or 6 people that I told, they all gave me like praise before I'd even done it. Like, your podcast was so good, Colin. I loved your episode with Nathan when you appeared as a guest. You're going to be great with your own show. And I'm thinking, yeah, I will be. And that was almost enough for me to not like to keep to not do it. I was like, oh, well, I've already got the praise. I don't even need to do the work now.
Yeah.
It would be the same with you being a DJ. Your friends may gas you up, which is great sometimes, and you need the support and you appreciate it. But other times you're like, you know what? Like, I benefit from just getting a little bit done in the background, having it ready, launch it, and then take some of the adulation, work on it, take some of the adulation, and then you can be a bit louder about great new content coming next week, guys, when you're 10 episodes in, it's built as a habit and you know it's going to keep going.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I know we're going off a little bit more and going a bit over, but you've just hit something again, and it was like getting that gratification before you've done anything. And going to sort of towards criticism, like I preferred with my music, and even now, because I love criticism in the terms of it obviously helps me grow, helps me learn new things. Obviously, it needs to be constructive. You can't just say it's shit because I want to know why it's shit. But do you how do you take criticism as well? Like, is that something that helps you to improve?
Yeah, when it's constructive criticism from people that I rate, absolutely. If it came from somebody that's sitting on the sidelines, has never done anything of note in a particular space that they're maybe speaking to me about, it's kind of more water off a duck's back. But
Yeah,
I think constructive criticism is great. Equally, if it is unconstructive and it's a bit close to the bone, and maybe you feel there's some truth in it, but it's just a bit sore in terms of, I think spite can be an incredible motivator to push you onwards. So I'll try and give an example rather than just saying that I'm driven by spite. When I first started the Instagram 2017, it was my brother and I that were actually doing it together. Hence, it's called Cambro. It was called Cambros, and Ian and I were getting pelters left, right, and center in group chats. People taking screenshots and putting in the chat and being like, and ones we were in as well, being like, "Why are you boys taking photos with your top off? Like, you just want a 10% off code for some shit t-shirt. Like, why should you tell anything? You're not personal trainers." And that motivated us to keep going, particularly me to keep going. I'm like, well, fucking watch this. Like,
yeah, good.
we'll see you laughing in a year's time when I don't want a sponsorship for somebody that's going to give me 10% code off a t-shirt. Like, I'm going to produce value on a daily basis, and people are going to follow this page and get value in what we're doing here because I want to give that. And I know that I've got knowledge and experience that I can share that will help bring others with me. And I think one of the best things about content creation is thinking about what would I have wanted to see 2-3 years ago. I'll create some of that because best believe there's thousands of people in that bracket. So from an investment perspective, Shane, you could probably speak to people about where you were 2, 3, 4 years ago, and what would you have wanted to see to get started? What would you have wanted to see to put you in a position that would cut out some of the mistakes you made? How valuable is that? So for me, I think Spike can be an incredible motivator to say, yeah, you say whatever the fuck you want, but watch what I'm going to do. Just you keep your eyes peeled. This is happening.
Oh, definitely. I think spite from some individuals has definitely helped me in the past. But I almost I was listening to a part of that same audio book I mentioned earlier. I was listening to a chapter on it, and it was like these people that you might have that have put you down in the past. You know, forgive them and actually thank them for what you've done because you're the person now because of these people these spiteful people that have actually made you do better. So if anything, forgive and thank. And I kind of like that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like you say, grateful that their criticism was fuel to your fire.
Yeah, but you got to be that person to take that criticism that on board, fuel it. Nice.
Spot on. I like
Yeah,
that, Shane.
cool. And what a great end to the show. So yeah, let us know how people can get in touch with you then.
Yeah, so Instagram is at col.campbell. If you're not on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn as Colin T. Campbell. And if you enjoy listening to my dulcet tones, you can hear me alongside guests most of the time, occasionally a solo podcast on Campbell Conversations, wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, awesome. Colin, thanks for coming on the show. Been a fantastic guest. And you know what? We've actually ran over, which is great. So we've had a lot to talk about. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Shane, and I'll do the plug for you. If you're listening on Apple, make sure you're giving this a 5-star review if you've enjoyed it, and subscribing to Shane's show, because I've had a look at the backlog and I've got a few of them saved for my steps later on this week, so it's going to be a good listen, and I'm sure there's lots more value to come in episodes after me as well.
Awesome, mate. I'm gonna have to pay Colin for that now. Nah, cheers, Colin. I really appreciate that, mate. And yeah, so that's been another awesome episode of the All Right Talk Show, and we'll have another awesome guest next week. Thanks for tuning in. Ciao.